Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to the Alexis podcast. I am to me. And I know there are those people that they're like, yes, Thanksgiving, it comes after Halloween. But I just feel like this year it's flying by. But then what's wild is it's like last year I said that it was flying by. So it's like, okay, really got to pick. And so it's still just like, again, WTH, how did we get here? And for those of you that were tuned into us last week, we are doing the You're Not Alone series during the holiday season. And really what that series is designed to do is that the holidays can be mixed for everyone. They can be filled with joys and sorrows and peak moments and sadness. And as we're getting to the end of the year and people are kind of questioning how they did this year and setting New Year's resolutions and how they're showing up for themselves. And maybe they didn't do what they said they were going to do. And, instead of evaluating that and saying, okay, what's my next right move? Where did I possibly go wrong? It's very easy in this season to just be like, cool, I suck. Let's move on. When really that's not how it is. When they say sometimes procrastination isn't what's wrong. It's like a symptom. It's showing you that there's something that you're missing. And how are we going to go and do that? And so if this is your first episode, I want to welcome you. This is our 25th episode of the Alexis podcast. It can be seen on YouTube. We do it live on Instagram and then as well as Facebook. And so just thank you so much for tuning in and taking this time, especially as the Thanksgiving prep is real, to spend that with me. And so what the Alexis podcast is designed for is people who are already feeling like there's something more to them. Like there's more to this. They're going to work routine, but they're like, God damn, man, like, is this all that there is? Is this it? Like, is this the adulting that I'm just going to work, pay bills and die? I think there's something stirring within me. And this podcast is to just uncover kind of like this thing that your heart already knows, that when you ask the universe to like give you a sign about it, and then it does, and you're your sign that I should be doing that. And the universe is like, I'm going to hit you with a bus at this point, like it's giving you every sign you could possibly have, but yet we find ourselves still afraid to make that first move. And so this podcast is designed to say, hey, one, in this series, you're not alone in that. But two, that whisper is probably why you decided to come here and be a human and go through this experience in this very temporary soul suit, that we get to wear if we're lucky for, 80, 90 years. And so it's really just one of those where it's like, you can do this, but you have to take that first step. And part of that first step is honoring your whisper and honoring the part along the way where you said, hey, I'm going to do this. I can do this. And so giving yourself that grace to be able to do that. So as we get into it, we're going to talk about anxiety. And I know the title is kind of funny of like so you're an anxious one, are you? But real talk, some of us be like actual anxious, and we are just like slowly plotting out everything that could have ever gone wrong in the history of our lives. And then if it did, all the things that we're going to do to combat it, and really how we're going to go about and do all of those things. So if you are sitting here listening and you're like, oh my gosh, she knows me. No, girl, we just the same. I know you because I know me, and I know that. And I know that change especially can be really scary, but for me, when I think of anxiousness, it's not always this anxiousness for the future. Sometimes it's this anxiousness that kind of lives in us. And I think sometimes that's the hardest part, is the anxiousness that, I don't know how it is for you, but I swear I feel like there was anxiety that I was just born with. And I'm like, how the hell are we trying to be doing that right now? Like, how do we have this anxiousness all the time that kind of lives in us? And I know that my religious churchy friends would be like, oh, you just pray about it. And it's like, girl, we already been praying for a long time. What is that in me that's stirring? And how can we look at overcoming that? How can we look at saying, I don't want to keep living like this. But before we dive into this, I do want to touch base on, obviously, not a professional in terms of having a therapist license or a psychologist. But what I am a professional in is feeling it and having it sometimes every single day. And having anxiety now, even postpartum, where I am like, oh my God, my brain will literally fire off all of the emotions that I would need to feel anxious in a moment, like it's happening. And having to remind myself, like, hey, that's not real. That's not real. And so for those of you that if you are struggling with that, one, there are incredible life coaches out there. I have a life coach. Her name is Danelle. She's absolutely wonderful. But also there's a thing too, for those of you that are parents, we've done family therapy before. And it is one of the coolest things that I have gotten to do with our son, Cam. It is also the most emotional thing I've ever done with our son, Cam. And I say that because there's a part in it that stuck with me so much is we're in this session and she asks us, I want you to write down everything that you're scared about and then what you think the other people are scared about, as in Cam and my husband. And I am for real writing down everything that makes me anxious, everything that I'm scared about. And I get done and I'm like, whew, that was so nice. I'm so glad I got that out of my system. And then she goes, now we're going to share it as a group. Oh, hell. I wasn't writing stuff down to be shared as a group. And so then what we had to do was we not only had to share what we were really anxious and scared about, but we had to share what we thought the other people in the room were anxious and scared about. And that part to me was wild. But what was even more wild is they say that it's like, maybe your kids aren't watching. That shit is not true. The next thing we had to do after we just did that whole emotional series was we then Cam had to show us what we looked like when we were feeling like anxious or scared or overwhelmed. And he hit it spot on. He had to do my facial expressions, how I sat, what I did. And I was like, oh man, dang. And then he had to do Jeff. And I was like, oh man, like down to the face, like getting literally everything. And so for those of you, if you haven't done anything like that before, I highly encourage it. And it's like, oh, we're not a family with problems. We don't have that. Everybody got problems. 1, 2, I can't tell you how freeing it is when you just get to be on the same page and you have this unbiased third-party person that can kind of guide you back into knowing that you guys are on the same team no matter what. And seeing that it is like, it's you guys against anything, but also getting a chance to hear a perspective. Because how many times, especially if you have teenagers and you're like, tell me what you're thinking. Nothing. Oh, okay. Nothing. And so it's just a really great way to break in. But for those of you that are like, cool, don't have kids, not dealing with any of that, what I want to bring up, and I've said this on podcasts before, is Jim Carrey talks about, and I just love him. I love the way he sees things, but he says, depression is your avatar letting you know that it's tired of the character you're trying to play. It's like waving a red flag of like, hey, help. And what I want to do over the next few minutes is really just dive into some things that we can do to kind of break ourselves out of that. Because especially when I'm feeling really anxious, the next thing that comes is feeling really hollow and dead and empty inside. Then anxious just goes to like depression and it just gets into sadness. And sadness is a super cute character on Inside Out. And she's funny. Piglet on Winnie the Pooh, also very funny, Eeyore. But when that is with you, when that's a part of you, when that lives in your every step, when you go to think about something and you think of the 97 things that could go wrong, and you're too scared of what could go right. Because if you think that if I think the way that I want it to go, then I'll lose it. It'll go away. And finding yourself not wanting to be there, like finding that sense of hope. And so as we go through these, it's just kind of like, one, What is your body telling you? And is it saying like, hey, I need a change up? Is it, I'm not honoring my whisper. I'm living like a little robot going from work to home, knowing that there's something bigger that I want to do, knowing that I'm bigger than what I'm doing. But then I just turn on the TV and eat dinner on the couch. And I forget about it. Identifying what do I do when that comes up? Oh, Tennille, that is bomb, being sadness for Halloween. Some days I feel like I am sadness every day. But that is genius. I love that so much. But what we're going to dive into is 3 things. One of them is, what is it trying to tell me? 2, are we conforming or are we honoring ourselves? And 3, kindness. And so the first one is really just, if you're a writer, even if you're not a writer, even if you were to record your voice, you have to get over that you don't sound like you think you sound. Like how I sound in my head and then how I sound in real life, I'm like, oh, that's not me. But it is. Getting over that, but really just asking yourself, whether that's anxiety, sadness, feeling this depression, feeling this hollowness, and asking it, what are you trying to tell me? So even if that's writing a letter, having your own conversation with yourself about yourself. And you're like, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, chick, you already doing that. You do that when you look in the mirror. You do that when you look at your fine lines. You do that when your hair's either working or it's not, or how you look in us. We talk about us to us all day. So why don't we make it work for us? Because if we can see like, oh, I'm feeling really anxious. I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling really tired. Well, why? Because for me, if I start feeling anxious and then God forbid that turns to sadness, in my house, I can feel combative. I can feel like I don't feel great, so I don't think anybody should. And I know that's not really nice, but that just is what it is. It's me trying to find that middle ground. Whereas if I can take a step back and say, what is this situation? Why am I so mad? Why am I so anxious about this situation? And usually the big one is, I don't like change. I say that I like change and I love traveling, but I like controlled traveling where I pick out all the things we're going to do. But what's so crazy is literally the best memories of my ever loving life on vacation are the ones that did not go to plan. My old roommate and I, we went to Amsterdam stayed out all night in the red light district. It was like 6 a.m. And then we had to walk back home, but we couldn't figure out where our hotel was. And we would go into some place. We're at like 7 a.m. now. And we're like, hey, where's Leeds plane? And they'd be like, it's to the left. And then we still don't see it. Then we'd say, hey, we go to another business. Where's Leeds plane? And then they'd point to the right. And then all of a sudden we're going to the right. And you're just like, come on. Then it starts raining. In short, it took us over 2 hours to get home. We ate a $90 breakfast full of crepes. I think we ate all of it. And then we slept the entire day. The next day when we got up, it was as if a riot had gone on and we had slept through the whole thing. Little did we know the Euro Cup was going on. And there were people in the streets all night and we were so dead to the world. That was not on my plan. It is one of the best memories that I have when I think of being on vacation. And so I need to remind myself when I am feeling anxious, I'm mostly anxious of change and then not liking it. And that can either be because I'm too short-sighted and I'm not really playing the long game. Like if your goal is to be healthier and to lose 15 pounds, those first few days in the gym are going to feel like torture. But if all you're doing is seeing what you don't like right in front of you and you forget why you're doing it, it's easy to get caught up in all of those feelings. So how do we go and be on your team? Remember, at the end of the day, I know there's like the haters online and there's, dumb shit like that, but ultimately it's always you versus you. It's always you versus you. And whether you're on your team or you're not on your team. And a lot of that is if you don't know why you're feeling the way you're feeling and you're just living your whole life in a reactive mode, you are missing so much of life. You're just reacting. That's what animals do. That's what toddlers do. We're grown-ups. We have to take a step back and say, why am I feeling this way? So whether that's writing a letter or talking out loud and talking through, what am I afraid of in this moment? is that real? Because a lot of times what I'm afraid of, and is that real, is either one, so far out of my hands, or it's no for both of them. The next thing I want to touch on is when you're feeling these really high moments of anxiety and you're feeling like there's so much overwhelm, is just checking in with yourself. Is this a season? Is this my new life? Or is this just situational? You know, back in September, Jordan had gotten his first cold, and then he had just gotten overtired because he was so stuffy. And he would just wake up screaming. And it would take like an hour to get him down at night. And then he'd sleep for 10 minutes and then wake up screaming. And it was so hard and frustrating and isolating. And we're just walking our little baby back and forth because God forbid you stop, or you try to set him down, or you try to sit down, he'll just scream all over again. And you're walking until you feel like your back is just going to like break in half, but like the other way, you know, not like bending over, like the other way, like just going to break. And I was thinking in those moments, like, oh my God, like this is goddamn awful. Why did we do this? But I forgot that wasn't forever. It was just 3 days. But when you're in the middle of day 2, you feel like you've now lived there and everything is just going bad. You know, when I work in corporate America, but when the timelines and the deadlines are on and the pressure's on, and I'm having to go to all these places and do these budgets and answer to this and do that, it can feel so suffocating. But reminding myself like, oh, this is just a stressful day. This is just a stressful week. It's not like that all the time. And so asking yourself, once you kind of go through and ask yourself, what am I so afraid of in this? And then, is this forever? Because if it is, then girl, make a change. Turn your boat around. It's going to take some time. You can't just, turn around and be in a new place. It might take some time. It might take some navigating. That's okay. Movement is key. If you start thinking of your goals, and if that is you, where you're like, I do need to make a change, whatever that is, health, financial, where you live, relationally, whatever. What's the floor? What's the ceiling? Best case scenario, you get to do X, Y, and Z. Worst case scenario, you'll give something to your goal, whether it is just 5 minutes, but pushing yourself forward every single day. The other part is really of that anxiety is really honoring yourself and finding where you feel like your true heart space is. For me, I know there are a lot of moms that they stay home and they raise their kids. Maybe they'll homeschool them, whatever it is that they're doing. In my mind, I was like, this is the kind of mom I want to be. I'm going to do it. And then I was like on week 11 of my maternity leave, and I was nursing Jordan in the morning, and I was getting ready to put him down for his first nap again. And I was like, man, I'm going to live this day every day. And I felt guilty that I wasn't super excited about that. And I think that social norms and pressure can get us to feel that way. But really the correct thing is like, hey, what's the happiest and healthiest version for me and my baby, for me and my family, for me, for our baby, and figuring out what those are. Because sometimes going against the grain isn't being different or wrong. It's honoring your truth, and it's honoring who you feel like you are. And you were made that way for a reason. And being able to stick to that instead of saying, what's wrong with me? There were so many times, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit. I wasn't planning on it, but it just came to me as sometimes we get anxiety because we're trying to be somebody that we used to be. And one of the things that I heard today that was just so powerful to me that I have to read it because I do not want to mess it up is one of the things that it says, for a star to be born, there is one thing that must happen no matter what. A nebula must collapse. So collapse, crumble. This is not your destruction. This is your birth. And how many of us are feeling anxious because we're trying to hold on to who we used to be instead of giving ourselves the opportunity to fall apart, which is scary, change. You don't got to tell me, but to allow yourself to become everything you've ever wanted to be. And sometimes, most times, real talk, that's giving up who you are for who you want to be. the last thing that I want to leave you with is that kindness piece. And when you find yourself in that place where you are just feeling stuck or anxious or like you just don't care, even if it is the smallest thing, do something in kindness for someone else. It can be a genuine compliment. Oh my gosh, I love your shoes. Your hair looks beautiful. And even as I'm saying that to you guys, I can't see your hair or your shoes, don't worry. I can feel this lift coming off of me. I can feel it moving. And I'm giving myself a chance to get better. Because so many times, especially when you're right on that cusp, anxious, sadness, anxious, depressed, anxious, hollow, slow death, no one can see because you feel hollow and empty on the inside. You have to find a way to let yourself get out of it. And for me, I'll stay in it longer than I should because it's easier to stay in a familiar hell than to try to get into an unfamiliar heaven. Sometimes it's easier to just kind of stay not feeling it because at least you know all your feelings there. You've literally found your 17 exits and you can just sit there and sulk instead of changing it up. So if you work from home, leave your house, go get a coffee, go walk around the grocery store, buy one thing, one kindness, one act of kindness, anything. If you have kids, you could write notes for them to put them in their backpacks or put it under their pillow or hide it for them and tell them how proud you are of them and how much you love them and how they are the coolest people that you know. You could do something for your spouse, just doing something for someone if you can't do it for yourself. Do something for someone, even if you can't do it for yourself, because as you start to do it for them slowly or instantly, because it'll just get you right out your mood, you're going to start feeling like yourself again. You're going to start feeling like the better version of yourself, the best version of yourself, so that you can give back to yourself in those ways. So to recap, as we go through it, ask yourself, what is this emotion telling me? It tells me I'm mad. Okay. Well, a lot of time, mad is sad's bodyguard. Think about that. Sometimes you being angry is the bodyguard of you feeling real sad. And talking through why that is. And when you find that answer, is this imaginary? Is this real? And is this forever? Because if it is not imaginary and it is forever and you need to make a change, do it. Why not now? If not now, then when? Truly, never. Do it. You deserve it. And if no one's going to tell you that, I will. You deserve it. You deserve to create the biggest, bestest, coolest, badassest life that you possibly can while you're wearing your soul suit for a very small and temporary time. You get to be you one time, and that's it. You get to be here one time, in this time, with your people, with your dogs, with yourself, one time. Don't waste it wishing you were somebody you always wanted to be. Be that person. But also know that in becoming that person, it's not going like this. I made a change. Look at me go. I'm in a trajectory. It's going to probably look like this. Look at me. It's changed. I've made a trajectory. Just mess. And then you'll be like, I think I'm going to go out now. And then you'll probably go right back down. But you just got to keep going because success isn't just up. You could be going any direction as long as you're being the person you want to be. It's about being who you want to be. It's not looking happy, it's being happy. And sometimes on that journey, you're not always going up. And sometimes you actually imploding to create something new is going up. It just looks like you're going down. One of my favorite quotes is, sometimes you need to jump and grow your wings on the way down. And for the people that have jumped, you are going up because you made a move You did something. You're not just standing there waiting for something to happen for you, because I will tell you, if you are waiting for something to happen to you, if you are waiting for someone to come for you, they're not. And if they are, it's not going to make you move, especially if you a lady. You're not doing nothing unless you want to do it, especially if it comes to chasing your dreams. And for you, people can support you. They can hate on you. They can do whatever. But when your mind is made up, it's over. Like Serena and Venus's father, he'd said, the most dangerous creature on the planet is a woman who can think. The most dangerous creature on the planet is a woman who can think. And I'm here to tell you, as you are going through that change, it's going to be messy. It's going to have anxiousness and sadness and depression and doubt and absolutely everything in between. And success, really, I swear to you, it doesn't look like this. That's fucking fake and for the movies. It looks like heartbreak. It looks like sadness. It looks like getting to rock bottom in your soul and getting the strength to stand up, and it's getting it taken from under you again. And I don't say that to deter you. I say that to say, if you're in any one of those places, keep going. You're getting there. You're close. You're the closest you've ever been. And you can do this. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on our Alexis podcast. I cannot wait to see you guys next Tuesday. I hope you guys have an incredible Thanksgiving. I have loved spending this time with you. And again, be safe. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. Bye.